we Gucci.
What's up, everybody?
Yo.
We are so happy to be with you. This is 11/11/21, November 11th, 21, and it is awkward, right? And we're excited to be with you as always on both Facebook and on YouTube and everywhere that we're streaming. We're just so happy to be with you. You are watching The Well Encounter. And I am your boy, Pastor Ray, aka Pastor Ramon, aka Pastor Ray, and I'm sitting here with none other than
I'm the rapping minister, 3J, Jehovah God, Jesus Christ, and justice. Without the three, we can't be free. Let's get it,
So
man.
if you didn't know what it means, now you know what it means.
Yeah, now you know. You know. If you didn't know, now you know.
Listen, we're excited to be with you guys tonight. As always, if you're with us, make sure that you let us know that you're on by saying hello in the chat. Share where you're from, or share who you are, and share what you're doing, or why you're here at the Well, or something that just lets us know that you got some love for us here at the Well. We love to know that you're with us.
It's Turkey Month.
It is Turkey Month. That it is. What's up, Miss Nikki? Glad to see you, Miss Nikki. Glad to know that you're on with us. I am excited because we have some amazing guests, but before we get there, you all know what time it is. I just want to share with you a little bit about what we're about, what we do. The Well is a platform, a ministry for all, a community for all people, and a conscious awareness type of faith community. Listen, The Well is about a couple of things. We want you to encounter the Well. We want you to become the Well. We want you to emerge and share the Well. And that means it's also synonymous with encounter love, become love, emerge and share love, encounter Jesus, become Jesus, emerge and share Jesus. All of those things are synonymous. So whatever you feel, you can put it in there. It's a positive word. We also believe in the 5 Ps. Everything that the Well does should lead you down a path. And that path is the 5 Ps. 3J, you want to share what those 5 Ps are?
Path is not part of that 5 Ps, right?
No.
Okay, making sure. All right, so we have we have purpose, power, passion, peace, and promise.
That's it.
That's it. Okay,
that's it.
Sure.
That's it. That's it.
I didn't want to get my P's confused. I was gonna put it up for y'all anyway.
That's it. So again, if you're watching now, what we also like for you to do is take a moment and share this to everybody that you know. Share the link, share the YouTube link, share the Facebook link, put it on your Facebook page, put it on your put it in your groups that you're in on Facebook. Put it, send it to your mama and your cousin and your auntie. Say, you need to watch this. This is my type of ministry. This is what we do. We real. We keep it real. And just share it all over the place.
Everything he just said. Everything.
That's it. Listen, tonight's conversation, we're talking about uncanceled culture. Uncanceled culture. Hold on real quick, y'all. Grandma, you got to turn the volume up when you get upstairs, because if not, then they're going to hear the echo while you're down here. We're talking about uncanceled culture, DaBaby and Dave Chapelle. That's right. I know many of you guys have heard about the comments that DaBaby made. Many of you guys have heard about the comedy special that Dave Chapelle has, The Closer. And listen, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about, we're going to be joined by folks who represent the LGBTQ community, as well as the church community, and we want to have the conversation. So without further ado,
let's get it.
Let's bring in our amazing panelists this evening.
We need a sound effect. I can't do that too much longer. It's going to mess up my throat. I'm sorry.
What's going on, beautiful people? It's amazing to have the amazing Karen Holmes and JaVonni Brustow with us. Our buddy and our other co-panelist, Brennan B, is out under the weather tonight, so we want to send a shout out to him and much love to him.
Hey, Brennan, we black at it again, black at it the one, man.
That's it. And also to Pastor Tay, who can't be with us tonight. But
Blazing Radio.
That's it. Why don't we take a moment and why don't we start with the amazing Miss Karen. Miss Karen, why don't you share a little who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about what you do.
My name is Karen Kendra Holmes, and I go by pronouns of she, her, and hers. And I work for the federal government now for a little over 20 years. I'm also with the Maryland Defense Force, which supported the Maryland National Guard. So we're a state guard under Title 432 of the militia. And I also now with the United States Veterans Reserve Corps. I've done with the Maryland Defense Force, I got 2012 NCO Soldier of the Year, which is non-commissioned officer, and in 2013 by the State Guard Association of the United States, Soldier of the Year of the country. Doing a lot of things in the community with the transgender community, trying to now partnered with the Department of Justice Community Relations Services. I am bridging the gap between law enforcement and the transgender community. So a lot's going on in Prince George's County right now. We just had a program start up. We haven't introduced it. We're going to do it not this Saturday, but following Saturday, November 20th, called the Butterfly Project. And by the way, there's my cup too. So the Butterfly Project would be to help transgender girls out there and boys as well, in far as resume building, as well as just getting things done, role playing with the transgender community people on doing interviews with jobs, as well as teaching them how to use computers, dress for success, and so on and so on. But we'll talk about it more later.
Awesome. Well, listen, we are so glad to have you, Ms. Karen. And listen, happy Veterans Day to you, because you also are a veteran. So we salute you for the work and the service that you've done for our country, and we appreciate you for that. I know you've had a full day of Veteran Affairs. Listen, before I get to my buddy JaVonni down there, I do want to say, JaVonni, who is part of the Well fam, JaVonni, if you would get back with us about your telephone number, we could call you for this stuff, but you don't ever get back to us, bro.
You're going to do that on the chat. Like, you're going to do that online.
Yes, because
you can't do that. You cannot do that private.
Absolutely. Because I keep telling him that he can reach out, and he doesn't get back to me.
I'm sorry, bro. He shouldn't have did that online. I'm sorry.
It's the only way to get his attention. My other buddy down here, and listen, let me say this, Ms. Karen, I have so much respect for you. I'm so happy that you could do this encounter. We met a couple of months ago doing some work out in the gorgeous Prince George's for those in the transgender community, and I think I led a prayer for an event that you were part of for a senseless murder that happened. And so I just am grateful to know you, and you have such a delightful spirit. I'm so glad to know you, and so glad you're with us this evening. My brother that is below us in this panel, JaVonni Brustow, who I also met this year, who is an amazing person as well. Why don't you share who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. JaVonni Brustow. I'm from Petersburg, Virginia. I'm a celebrity news writer and political writer. I'm the founder of the entertainment news website, Populist.com. I am the vice president of the Misty TV firm, and I'm currently working on a reality series for Viacom called the Black Oconee Rock Fest. It's a national talent search starting down here in Virginia.
Awesome. Again, JaVonni, I got to know this year, and I was able to meet JaVonni because he did an interview with me about our project, our single "For Your Love."
The song you made, and I was just on.
The song. Yeah. Well, you wrote your part.
Yeah,
so
it was a great song still.
I appreciate it, JaVonni. So you guys make sure that you tune in or find JaVonni on social media. We'll have a chance to share that towards the end of this conversation. Again, we're talking tonight about we're talking about uncanceled culture. There is a thing called cancel culture. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. But I want to jump right into it. So, get it. Recently, Dave Chapelle and DaBaby have been in the news over comments that they both made separately towards the LGBTQ community. We're going to start with DaBaby.
What? I'm not going on anybody, but what grown man wouldn't name himself DaBaby?
Hey, listen, I tagged DaBaby in this. I just want to say, I have a lot of respect for DaBaby.
I do too.
I tagged him in this, and I even hope DaBaby is watching somewhere. But listen,
it's just being funny for right now.
Let me repeat a little bit of his comment. I won't say everything verbatim. But DaBaby was at a concert.
That takes the fun out of it.
He says, if you didn't, he's talking to his audience at this concert. He says, if you didn't show up today with HIV, AIDS, or any of them deadly sexually transmitted diseases that'll make you die in 2 to 3 weeks, then put your cell phone lighter up. He said, if you ain't sucking dick in the parking lot, put your cell phone lighters up. And so many people had so many different reactions to that. I would like to know what you all took from that. What was your first reaction? I know, Ms. Karen, we just talked about this moments ago, but JaVonni, I know you've been following the story. Either one of you can go first, but what was your initial reaction to this thing, this comment?
Hey, it's crazy. Excuse me.
So my initial reaction, as a writer who, has to cover these things, it was just shock. Like my mouth was just open. What was the purpose of that? What does that even mean? And so one thing that has to be taken into account. Am I still here? Looks like I froze.
Uh-oh.
He did for you.
Oh, he did for you.
Yeah, he did call it that time. Dang.
Well, I'll go ahead and give my part of it. I thought it was very offensive, as far as the things that he said, and I guess he was trying to prove a point that he's a straight guy, and he doesn't do those things, and he was kind of putting himself above the LGBTQ community. That they're doing that kind of stuff in the parking lot, or they're doing it elsewhere. They've got some kind of disease because of the fact that they are part of the LGBT community. And I think that was totally wrong for him to be that offensive and say those kind of comments. If he believed it, keep it to himself, but he didn't have to put it out, because I'm sure possibly there were some kids there, parents are there with their kids, and it just wasn't the right place to say that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
JaVonni, you back? Are you there?
Yes. No idea what that was about. Sorry. All right, so look. Yeah, so my reaction to this, as an entertainment writer covering this, was just shock. And I think that what's important is to take into account where a person is. This was not like an articulate statement, just realize, first of all, that it was like an off-the-cuff, ridiculous remark. And so I was waiting for him to, just seeing how he was going to rectify the situation, waiting for an apology. And of course, it just went horribly, horribly wrong. Every time he tried to say something about it, it just got worse. But again, even for now, it's just, I don't know. I don't have an answer. It was completely crazy. And I mean, he supposedly has said that he's learned his lesson since then. I mean, I don't know. But this was the biggest this is the biggest stage for hip hop. And to do that on that stage of all places, that is the place that you go to when you have, all your I's dotted, all your T's crossed. I would just not expect to see that from there. So that was my thing. I said, this guy just really torpedoed his career. That's just the last place that you go to try and be cute,
Yeah. I mean, and so,
I think,
go ahead, Ms. Karen, please.
I was just going to say, I think he thought like in an arena place like that, it's totally different than if you were a broadcaster on TV and saying something like that. They're taking it in two different ways, but yet they really offended a lot of people that were there at that arena rather than, somebody doing it on TV.
Yeah. Just real quick, Miss Karen, one of our YouTube people says, "Hey Karen, Phyllis Dickerson from SGS. She just wants us to give a shout out to you." So it's Miss Phyllis. I don't know if you know.
Oh, tell her hi.
Okay. Yep, she can see you. Yeah, I think you're right. JaVonni, one of our Wellians says he was out of line. He should have been direct with his disrespect. I personally feel like he was speaking to other straight males he was beefing with and chose that time and that way to express the beef. Tacky and mad disrespectful, but it seemed like street disrespect to me.
I can see that.
I
understand that.
So he was asked.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, that was a good one. All right, JaVonni, I see you out here. Yeah, you gotta be on here next time.
Yeah, listen. So people asked him continuously. They were like, "Listen, we need an apology. We need an apology." And so he makes these apologies, but it's several different like failed attempts, and then he finally gives this professional one. I think I've read a little bit earlier for Miss Karen, but let me just see if I can find it. He gives these attempts where he's like, he said, all the lights went up, gay or straight. You want to know why? He says, what me and my fans do at the live show, it does not concern all you N-words on the internet or you bitter bees on the internet. It's not y'all's business. All the lights went up, gay or straight. You want to know why? Because even my gay fans don't got effing AIDS. He continued, they don't got AIDS. My gay fans, they take care of themselves. They ain't no nasty gay N-words. See what I'm saying? They ain't no junkies.
He ain't come out and say that. He ain't say that.
Like,
he didn't. Where did you pull that from?
I saw the video. I saw the video. He said it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he said that. Yeah. And so it's... He has that apology.
I didn't know.
But then he comes back later and he finally kind of initiates this apology where he says, you know, people are so ready to bash him with hate. And so why can't we just get to this place where we're able to teach as opposed to hating on me and throwing the hate back that I was throwing out there. Listen, do those apologies, do they suffice for people? Like, how do you all feel about this type of apology?
I think that'd be
He took. I mean, he went from insulting people to further insulting. I mean, what do you mean junkies? So now the people that you just offended, now they're all junkies. I mean, great. I remember years ago. God, shouldn't go back this far. Like it was during when Mariah Carey was promoting Glitter. Like her publicist like ran up on her once and like snatched her mic out of her hand. Like that's what needed to happen here. And even when he was giving like half decent apologies, you know, he would make a statement and then he would go on Twitter and start retweeting all the people who were saying, yeah, you know, you were right. You know, First Amendment, you should be able to say what you want. I was saying like hashtag men don't have rights trending on Twitter saying that, you know, he's not able to defend himself. And then he kept getting defensive. He was at the point of being like backed into the corner and just shooting at everything that was coming. You know, I blame management for just not being able to, like the statement that eventually came out should have happened in the beginning. You know your artist. You know whether you represent an articulate person or not. And you know you should already be prepared to step in and speak for someone who just has a garbage mouth. You know, I always like present folks with certain people that are like that. Some people you're going to have to give a little bit of a helping hand. So it just shouldn't have gotten to that point. And then he posted his professional apology and deleted it. So, you know, it just he just was digging. It just got worse. I watched this and I said, I couldn't, like, I think it was Medea said, like, you couldn't have worse if you prayed to God and said, please send me worse. I couldn't think of a way to further, you know, hurt someone's reputation over something completely avoidable. Like he did all of this and continued to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll say that 50 Cent did. He tried to step in and help. He went to the public and said, look, this guy is not media trained. That was the best answer that anyone could have given. And then he just allowed him to perform, because somebody has to have some sense here, right? It's almost punching down to try and get someone who just isn't good with words and force them to give like a decent apology. It's not going to happen. And he had him to perform recently at Rolling Loud in New York, because the festival is still going on. He gave him another chance. I don't think I heard any other attempted apologies or anything from DaBaby, but I do think that 50 Cent made the effort to try and take him under his wing and help. I mean, he realized what was happening. Like, this is someone who needs help, who does not know what to do, and I think that was the best way of handling it, and will likely not get anything that the public would like to hear from DaBaby, and at this point.
I hear you.
Yeah, JaVonni was right about the fact that, his media person should have stepped in or cut the mic on him, The apologies was just so bogus. I mean, the fact that oh, now his career might be going in a different direction than what he wants. Oh, let me really ham it up as far as an apology, which is a little bit too late. And if you're reading between the lines like I heard, you don't believe it at all. It was a desperate cry to say, "Hey, I'm sorry, don't end my career," and stuff like that. So,
Right.
and you need to, these people that criticize and make comments like they do, their managers or personal assistant, they should step in and protect that artist. Don't let them make themselves in a deep hole. So
But I guess my thing is, I'm thinking about like I thought that too. I think what both of you saying. I mean, I thought it. I think the issue I had was, what do you do though when you have that artist who is not willing to listen to their management, who's not right? Like it's
Lock
like,
him in a
I
room
know
and
what
take
I'm.
his phone.
Yeah, right. Like,
He listens.
I think, I thought it was like, well, because I was like, I know his management and his publicists have to be telling him that this is not cool, right? But I think we get a little too headstrong sometimes, and we're in this space like, oh, they ain't gonna take nothing from me, and it's not until they hit your pockets where it's like, okay, all right, y'all go ahead and help me out because I can't lose the money, as
right.
opposed to right like, yeah, I don't know.
I know,
So
like
so so
I was just gonna
go
say, I
ahead.
know recently I got myself a personal assistant, and she helps me out a lot to tell me and keep me straight on what I need to do and what I need to say. And if I'm not doing it, she literally will step up and say, "Hey, you need to do it this way because it's your career that I'm trying to protect," and that's what a personal assistant should be doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's keep it going. And I think you said, JaVonni, you said a word that I it reminds me of what Dave Chappelle sort of brought up. You said punch down, which is something that he talks about in his comedy special Closer. Shout out to
Brilliant.
Dave. Yes,
Brilliant.
shout out to
That
Dave Chappelle, who is
that
from the
piece
DC
was
area.
that piece
Um,
was brilliant.
so
Oh,
if you haven't been following the story of Dave Chappelle, who's a comedian from the Washington D.C. area, most folks know who he was or who he is. He's got a special called The Closer that came out a couple of months ago on Netflix. Um, and in his comedy, he talks a lot about the hypocrisy, if you will, of sort of this movement in the LGBTQ community versus that in the black community. But even with him speaking what he called his truth, there's a lot of reaction, different emotions that have sort of flamed up, and specifically from the trans community and the LGBT community. So Dave Chappelle is no stranger to egregious comments, but in this particular one, I'd like to know, and I'll come to you, JaVonni. Why do you think there's just such this strong reaction from the LGBTQ community about what Dave Chappelle is joking about?
So, one thing that he said in reaction, he asked, had people watched the entire thing? For those who are upset, did you watch the entire special? And I didn't really give that much thought to it at first because I too had only seen clips of it at the time and hadn't seen the whole thing. And usually people tend to say that when they, you get in trouble, and that's just kind of a usual response. Other people have said that, Trump has had speeches where he'd say crazy things and he would say, well, did you hear the whole thing? No, we don't need to hear the whole thing, sir. We've heard you speak enough. But in this case, Dave Chappelle was completely right with that. I mean, from start to finish, he started this off literally as a plea to the LGBT community to, please um, don't throw the baby in the trash, to put it lightly, and just ask for some type of common ground that we could.
Oh, I think JaVonni is frozen again on us.
freeze.
Um, let's keep going.
Lightning.
Let me read a couple of comments. I know that Ms. Nikki says that from the very beginning, Dave Chappelle has always pushed the envelope of offense. Even since the David Chappelle show,
Man,
he's
what?
never switched up from being a person who speaks exactly what he feels.
Never. Never. That's why he's a genius at what he does.
And she also says, when it comes to someone whose career hinges on the opinion of others, you really have to be mindful. Okay, she thinks she was talking about what's the name there? DaBaby there. And I know, Miss Karen, I don't know that you've seen the Dave Chappelle special. Oh, is JaVonni back?
JaVonni, you back?
I am back. I'm sorry. I'm no idea what that's about.
I'm gonna let you go ahead and continue. Go ahead, man.
Okay. So where was I? I swear it's not my connection. So I was saying that. Okay, where was I? So from start to finish, I mean, yeah. So from start to finish, DaBaby, Dave Chappelle was trying to get some common ground with the LGBT community about DaBaby. And so he starts off this, show in talking about experiences of his with the LGBT community, things that made him uncomfortable, concerns of his. He cracked a couple jokes, some could be seen as inappropriate if they were isolated, but, it is what it is. We should be able to laugh at ourselves. And he continued on. He even went into a tangent about a relationship or a friendship with a trans comedian. How all of that went. She was a terrible comedian, all this type of stuff, how she redeemed herself. There were some anecdotes about him, fighting a trans person in there that happened. But again, this is just a part of just a part of the show. And it ended with him talking about, the woman committed suicide and how he missed her, etc. And just what type of affinity that he has for the community. If you watch the entire thing, it's just not possible that I could see where someone could get angry at him. This was spoken out of a place of, being genuine and from his heart. He did not mean any animosity from it. If I were to take a segment out of it, a clip, and post something about, I don't know, his glory hole joke, for instance, stuff like that. Yeah, people might be a little concerned. But I have not seen any trans people that I knew who were offended by it, and even the others in the LGBT community. I grew up watching Dave Chappelle. He's not someone who generally speaks towards demographics with like malice. He wasn't being malicious through any of it. I just think, this is what happens when you decide to, cut up videos.
Yeah.
Facts.
I'm so glad you said it. So I want to follow up, Ms. Karen. I have a sort of a different question for you. Let me read this comment. Candace says, it is bull. People did what they normally do, took a clip of something and ran with a segment of the context that benefited their point. Similar to the Bible, it's comedy. Comedy comes from the tensions of real life. We have to find something to laugh at and not take everything so seriously. You literally have to watch the whole special. I agree with Nikki. Dave never switched up his raw comedy. Hate it or love it, but he starts with the conversation, and that's what I love about him. I want to talk to you, ask you, Ms. Karen. There is this tension, I think, that does exist between the Black community overall and then within the LGBTQ community, and then even within the transgender community. And that was why this is really big on why I really wanted to have you guys on to speak really boldly about this. And Ms. Karen, I want to ask you, I know you to be, and when I met you, it was because I was doing a prayer, again, at the site where two transgenders had lost their life. We had gathered for that. I remember there was this conflict because I remember when they asked me and they said, well, we're glad that you'll come because there are not many Black pastors who will even come out to pray for the transgender community. It's a few far in between, and almost nobody would show up that they asked. And in respect, right? They said, well, we were looking for some bigger name pastors to come out, but none of the bigger name pastors wanted to be associated with anybody in that community.
That speaks a lot.
And I said, I'm coming. Like we should never not pray for people. That's not something that I would even. And I know you announced that you are a member of a church as well. My question is, how do we start to talk more about that tension that causes right this malice and the disconnection and the division between the transgender community and the Black community and the church community? How do we even begin to get into that conversation?
Well, basically, I think people just don't know or understand the transgender community. And I always like to start off by saying being transgender is who you go to bed as. Being gay or lesbian or bisexual is who you go to bed with. We transition to be happy, first of all. And when we do, society cuts us down. We end up losing our spouse, our children, our family, our jobs, our homes, and our friends, because they don't understand us. And then we end up committing suicide. The suicide rate for the transgender community is 41%. This year alone, so far, murders on the transgender community has been 44. It's the highest so far that we've had across the country. And I won't even think about what it is around the world. But, the thing is, people just don't understand. We're not what you see on Jerry Springer show. We are military people. We are police officers, firefighters, doctors, nurses, politicians, judges, and the list just goes on. If people just got a chance to sit and listen and talk to us, they get a different view of who we are. I remember back in 2012 when I ended up going to Joplin to help out the tornado victims down there. I'm on my second flight of the trip going to Joplin on a small plane, and I'm sitting beside this one lady, and I'm telling her why I'm going to Joplin. I also do Red Cross. I was part of the disaster team for my agency, and I was going down there to help. And something said, tell her that I was trans. Well, obviously God told me to tell her, and I did. And she said, wow, you do all of this and you're transgender? I said, yeah. And she says, you're my new best friend. And I'm like, that's great that I'm your new best friend. But the thing is, why do I need to go through a resume like that to be your new best friend, that I'm doing something positive for the community, for people who desperately need help? And I've been on quite a few disaster missions. I've even gone to Haiti to teach the Haitians on how to do search and rescue and swift water rescue. This is who I am. I tell people I've been infected by a virus called volunteerism, and that virus is running through my body, and I'm trying to now, I feel like I want to infect everybody else that I come in contact with, not to shed shame on them because they're not volunteering, to give them encouragement to say, hey, I want to help somebody else, because if I'm troubled by something, but I'm helping somebody else out there, I'm going to forget about my troubles. I'm thinking about that person, helping that person survive out there who lost everything. So there's a whole lot that's going on. But I think if you get to know us, if you know somebody by looking at them that they're transgender, make it opening for them to say, hey, I've got a good friend who happens to be transgender and I love them to death. That trans person now says, oh, I've got now maybe somebody I can talk to and open up and tell them what I'm doing. Like I said, we're not what you see on Jerry Springer show. We're doing great things out there. And I wish people would understand, including the church, understand. I've gone to several different churches so far, but I've got one main church. And the main church I go to in Rockville, they love me to death. And we're talking about the majority of them are in their 70s and 80s at this church. And they're looking out for my safety. They're praying for me all the time. And one time I told them in the area of Fairmont Heights from 2 sex workers that were murdered, I told them, I said, hey, you know what? One day I'm sitting there talking to one of the trans women out there on the street, and her buddy was trying to call her to come on, come on. And the officer that I rode with, he said, you know, last time you were talking to that girl, I go, yeah. He said her pimp was in the area. I'm like, are you serious? First of all, I didn't know transgender people had pimps, but obviously I do now. And then there was a couple of shootings down the street. And so I told this to my church, and I told them to keep me in prayer because I want to be able to get a bulletproof vest so when I'm out there talking to these girls, I'm protected. Do you know I got $550 within 3 days because they were concerned for my safety to be out there on the streets doing something good? So I think if the church understands, and it starts from the leadership of and the pastor, who can say, hey, have people in like myself to come in there and talk and educate and get their trust, I think things would be a lot better, because there's a lot of trans people that really, really want to be in the church. I mean, I used to videotape live on Facebook, and believe me, I was having 70 to 110 people who were trans on there watching the church services. They want to be fed, but it's the church that's pushing them out. I'm sorry I got winded, but it's so passionate.
It was good. It was good. It was good. It was
Very
great.
good.
It was great.
That was beautiful.
I mean, yeah.
Overall, like
it's part of why we do the well, right?
Yeah.
What I try to tell people, right? You don't have to agree with everybody on everything, right? But I think Dave Chapelle said this piece. He talks at the end of his piece. JaVonni, I don't know if you caught this. He says at the end of his piece, he says, when he was talking about his friend who was transgender, who he allowed to open the show for him, who had totally come out, she had bombed at the beginning of the show. He says, but then, right,
people
like
started to get to talk
people
to her.
started
She
to
was funny as hell,
and she was real funny in his part of the show, talking back. And he said, there's this moment at the end, and it caught my attention. He says, her name was Daphne. I want to call her name Daphne. She says, I don't need you to believe me. I just need you to believe that I'm having a human experience. And that was such that moment, like it hit me. She said, I don't need you to believe in me, but I do need you to believe that I am having a human experience. And I love it because Dave Chapelle really, he has this comedy special, but he says he jokes around. He says I'm transphobic, but he says that because that's what people have called him. But he talks about this beautiful relationship that he had with this woman, this trans woman, and he talks about how he was able to forge that relationship and that he really cared about her. And then I hear you, Ms. Karen, you talk about the fact that, you know, there are so many trans people who want to be within the church, but the church is not. Well, let me ask you, why do you think they're not in church? What is it that's happening that they're not in church? I don't want to speak for anybody.
It's either they're told not to, or they treat them really bad. You know, like, church is supposed to be a welcoming place for people. You know, hey, how are you? Glad to meet you. And that's not happening with a lot of the trans people there. I went to one of my old churches, and it's funny, one of them, mega church up in Gaithersburg, I won't mention any name, but anyway, I played softball for 5 years with this church, and sitting in front of me was my pitcher, who I'd known for 5 years. And he happened to turn and look at me, and he goes, you know, how you doing? And that. He goes, by chance, do you have a brother named Tony? And I looked at my past pastor, and I said, should I tell him? And she said, yeah. And I did. And he was like, wow, you look great. And he said, you know, how you been? And everything went really great. And I could still go there if I wanted to, but it was so funny. He goes, when my wife comes, see if she remembers you or notices you. And she didn't. And then I happened to go to another team-related church, and I went up to the one of the pastors there, and he basically wanted to, you know, shun me down for being trans. And I just have never gone back to that church again. And that's the kind of response that we're getting is, you know, we're getting pushed out, where God loves everybody. You know, he's there for you and me. And
Yes.
if the church people say that they're Christian, aren't you supposed to love them all the time? Aren't you supposed to talk to them in love? So hopefully, maybe, I don't know, that person may change. Who knows? But a transgender person, they're going to know who they are, like in their mind, heart, and spirit. That's not going to change. But you should still be able to accept me. If you don't mind, I like to read real quick a 1 minute speech that I was going to do for TEDx Ashbury Park on the responses respecting each other. Treat others as you wish to be treated is not just a cliche, it's the golden rule in life. I have feelings, a mind and a heart who serves and cares for others. I am a human being and wish to be treated as one, like you would treat your mother, father, children, siblings, and friends. Just like you treat them with respect, I too want to be treated with respect. The only difference between them and me, I am a transgender woman, one who works for the federal government now for over 20 years, a military veteran who was given the honor as Soldier of the Year by the State Guard Association of the United States in 2013. So please, treat me as you would like to be treated. It's the golden rule and the right thing to do. That's all we want. That's all we want. You would be surprised of what could happen between me and you that could be a blessing to you one day, but you push me out.
That's amazing and that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Miss Karen. That's really beautiful. And again, it goes back to that same comment that Daphne said. I just need you to believe that I'm having a human experience just like you. I hear that and I feel that. JaVonni, I want to switch over to you real quick. Okay, so let's spice it up a little bit. I do want to read. There is a comment that I wanted to read that I think JaVonni said, you can't spread the gospel to people you hate. The church at large will be so much more effective when they learn to hate sin and love people. And that's, and I like for JaVonni. Also, Miss Phyllis, who says, that's the great thing about the well. These topics are so timely and whatnot. JaVonni, all right, so... Right, we talk a lot about the fact that we talk a lot about the fact that the well is built for people to be able to disagree but still disagree and love each other at the end of the day. Right? Mm-hmm. We're not always going to always agree.
Right.
But now there's this thing called cancel culture, right? And we call this one uncanceled culture specifically because Dave Chapelle and DaBaby have not been canceled, even though there are tons of people that want them canceled for their comments. And specifically, we know that Dave Chapelle is a comedian. JaVonni, what's the golden rule, right? In your mind, you cover so much of the popular stuff that's going on, and we see cancel culture all the time. People getting canceled back to back to back to back. So, right, where's that line, right? Like, what can't you say? I mean, can we talk about the LGBTQ community? Can we not talk about the LGBT community? What's the line where it goes, okay, yeah, that should be canceled, but now we'll let him stay? Because we see that with Dave Chapelle, who's still around.
So, there is something to say about being honest and being genuine. One thing that Dave Chapelle did say, which of course people, overlooked, and, half of the people complaining didn't watch the whole thing anyway, so they never know. He did say that taking food out of someone's mouth, which is canceling someone, is akin to killing them. And so there was a part of this, as ignorant as what he said was, DaBaby, he was talking about, you all are taking food out of my kid's mouth. I felt bad for him at that particular moment because through all of this, I just wanted him to apologize and mean it. And I realized through this, I said, well, it's not going to happen. Okay, someone's going to have to talk to him, etc. But that's not going to come out of his mouth. Just acknowledge that. But when these are people who have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 streams of income. And when we've decided that someone's on the wrong side of history, the trolls and the influencers to go out to seek and find each of them and make sure that they're all removed and that, these people have no livelihood. And it's just ironic and unfortunate that this is done in defense of a minority group, what's often seen as, an oppressed demographic. So while trying to advocate for people who have less, you are then going to try and make other people have less. That in and of itself doesn't make any sense. Um, so, canceling or cancel culture in its entirety, I think that the objective should be to get people to learn, to be able to move forward, to have some type of understanding and common ground, because that was literally the entire purpose of Dave Chappelle's special, was to have a common ground. And people did the complete opposite just because they could. People seek to cancel others because they can. There's really not any other reason for it. The internet is full of a lot of angry people, and anger online spreads, spreads like wildfire.
Yeah.
But again, just the act of trying to bring other people to their knees to take food out of their mouth is really counterproductive. That's just not the goal that we should be having. It's like sending people to prison without rehabilitation. They're just going to come out angry and in a much worse scenario that they were than before. And I think that we've been discussing that for, decades. And I feel like maybe we could possibly try and utilize that thought process for canceling people. It's just a thought.
Yeah, no. What I hear distinctly from both you and Karen is that there is this need for more and more and more education and resource.
Yes.
Like that's what I'm hearing. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It sounds like we need more and more resources.
I was just going to say that's what we're trying to do with the Butterfly Project in Fairmont Heights. We're going to start there. The District 3 commander at the time when she asked me about coming on and seeing what I could do to help the trans women get off the streets from doing sex work, because she was tired of having our officers push them over across the street on the DC side. DC would come back and push them back over to the Maryland side. And she said, I'm tired of playing this ping pong game back and forth. Is there anything you can do to help? And I said, I would love to try to see what I can do and help. And that's why when I went out riding with the police officers every 2 weeks from like midnight till 3:30 in the morning, I'm stopping, talking to the girls, and finding out what we can do to get them off the streets. They want a job. They want food on their table. We call it, it's not sex work because they love it. It's called survival sex, which is what they're doing out there. And I think if you understand that they need to survive, to put food on their table, to lay down their head at night, it's a little different now. It's not because they love it. It's because they're trying to survive. And what we need to do, one of the libraries, the day you were there, is the fact that the girls there, actually there was 5 other programs that said, hey, I love what you're thinking and what you want to try to do. And Greenbelt Library Memorial Library System said, I'm going to team up with Fairmont Heights Library and let's start the Butterfly Project, which is going to be helping these girls with resume building, helping these girls role play across the table to do job interviews. And also the other thing, Dress for Success and computer learning, mentorship, and everything else. And that's what we're going to be doing. It's the resources we're trying to bring to them right now.
Yeah. So actually, before I even go there, Miss Karen, it's so funny you said that because we had last week we had a encounter, 2 weeks ago, we had an encounter on gentrification. And there was a couple on their Wellians, Derek and Karen, and she talks about this experience in her neighborhood down on 8th Street. And she talks about the fact that there are some sex workers on her street, and the folks that have gentrified the area really are trying to get those sex workers removed. And by doing that, though, their first thing was always to call 911. Let's call the police on them. Let's call the police on them. And I think Karen's response was like, wait, y'all are trying to call the cops on these people, but if you stop looking at, she said almost exactly what you're saying, we gotta like stop looking at them as just out here trying to get sex all the time. This is their survival. This is a survival technique for them. This is how they're trying to make a living because they don't have any other way right now to make a living. If we look at them as human beings, then maybe we would try to help them differently in a different way instead of always trying to cops on them. And her other piece of that was, and again, this is white folks calling the cops on blacks, right? Regardless of whether they're straight, gay, in between. She's like, but this is the white people's answer time and time again to just call the cops on folks who are just living and not seeing them as people. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right. And that's the thing. We just need to start pulling together our resources and try to help these girls. Give them a reason and a purpose to get off the streets. You know, they get their medication online, which is really bad. We don't want them getting not the proper help that they need as far as health care from a regular doctor, you know, instead of going online and getting this stuff that could cause them sick. Some may have other sicknesses as far as, you know, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, all of this. I mean, I get checked out all the time, you know, from my regular doctor before I'm taking other medication, and they're prescribed medication by that doctor to keep me going in the direction I'm going as a trans person. So that's what we need to do. We need to pull resources in. If anybody is willing to come out and help, you know, or as far as a mentor or helping with resume building, we could use your help. Computer learning, financial stuff as well. You know, if you can't give your time, definitely we're looking for finances because we're going to go. If God willing, we're taking this project, the Butterfly Project, nationally, and that's the way I want to take it. You know, I think we can do it. And if you want, you can reach me at kkholmes at kkholmes.com, or you can reach me on my personal website, www.kkholmes.com.
I love it. Miss Karen,
I'm already on that website, by the way.
Well, that's good.
Listen, Miss Karen is ahead of the game. I love it. She's packaged. She's like, I'm gonna put this out there because I love that you're building the resources. But I know JaVonni, you do a lot of the same work. One of the things I love about JaVonni is he covers pop culture, but he's also big on covering the political news as well. And I love that about you because you're an advocate as well, and you're an activist as well. JaVonni, what do you think are some of the necessary steps where entertainment could be more proactive? And I know this wasn't one of the questions I sent you, but I know you're so good at this stuff anyway because you do it. What do you think are some of the necessary steps for entertainers to start moving towards helping to sort of bring unity amongst the different communities that are out there?
Okay, I'm already there. But first, I wanted to say, so for disclaimer's sake, I'm from the DC area. I've been down here in Petersburg for 4 years. I wanted to, commend Karen for what she's doing regarding the trans community, those that are on the street. This is something that I remember following DC government news or politics 10 years ago. You know, they were putting up, these no sex work areas. And so all it did was just, move people elsewhere. It's the same thing with, various vagrancy laws. It just moves people into another neighborhood. It doesn't solve the problem. 8th Street moved along very quickly. And so calling the cops is, again, not going to do anything but move people elsewhere. And I'm down here in Petersburg, Virginia, which our former city manager said this is like DC in like 89 or something. I don't know if I'd say all that, but I'm like, I feel like I've seen the future. And so I try to warn people of these things. When the communities change, you have this demographic that has to be addressed. And if you don't, they're just going to be shifting all around, the city, the region, etc. To answer the question regarding what entertainers can do, what I've always been an advocate for and what I've tried to work on politically is to mix audiences. I've told you this is a very interesting environment that I'm in. I'm in a city that is 85% Black, that for some reason does not appear to be ran by Black people. Our social media is taken up by almost all white people, and they're all bashing the city and saying, insanely inflammatory things about the citizens that are here, if not just outlandishly racist. I have some on my friends list who I think that they have a daily quote of making at least 3 racist statements a day. And it's like, hey, as the black friend on your list, you're not doing this in front of me. You know what I mean? So I try to mix audiences, whether it's, Democrat, Republican. I tell folks, you don't have to like these people, but as someone who's heard some of this, you need to be physically present for when some of this is said. And so I'm always trying to, whether it's politically partisan lines, trying to bring people into mixed company because some folks need to be in front of others. So I feel like I've done a decent job of that. Just for the fun of it, for instance, candidates who are running for office. This reality show that I'm on, it's executive produced by it's Mysterious for Making the Band. So it's a rapper. And so this is that audience. And so I had invited some candidates for office who ran as Republican, for instance, the now governor. Just because in the event that you happen to make it into office, I think that it would be nice that you, for one, come to, the blackest part of the state and also to interact with some different people. That doesn't mean that I agree with you or anything else. I'm going to throw you in the room. I think that you all need to talk to each other and good luck. I mean, I'm not throwing anyone to the wolves. So I was like, look, if my name's attached to it, you're safe. But these are people who appreciated it. I again try to facilitate these types of conversations, and sometimes, culturally, socioeconomically, a lot of my conversations over the last few years have just been people who just don't understand. They've not been in front of other people. And, the same way that I try to, in being in entertainment, we actually call this edutainment, which is educating while entertaining. We try to bring the artist in front of elected officials. You might perform in front of the White House one day, so here's your practice by being in front of elected officials, by being in front of, candidates for office. I plan on bringing some people into various political spaces just because I think that the industry needs to have that type of representation. And so, again, it's just making sure that the opportunities to be in front of people, to be able to share our experiences and mingle. There just needs to be more of that, we're segregated, whether it's in church, how they might look at, the rap community. You're familiar with that. How they might see the trans community. There's a viral video, which you all might have seen, of a pastor who stopped the service and was yelling at the top of his lungs at a trans person saying, "You are not going to come in here with that." This whole big embarrassing thing. What did you say?
I don't know. Chicago.
I don't know where that was. I'm sorry.
A couple of years ago, there was a pastor that did that. He was all over the internet, and there was a pastor that literally told a trans guy, "You will not come to my church like that." And
that was probably it.
Until you decide to become a man and dress like a man and be a man, you are no longer allowed in my church. And we in front of the whole congregation.
Wow.
And it was just like,
wow.
crazy. I was like they do that for real? Like, it was.
There are some churches that are like that. But, again, the golden rule, I put that in the chat. I said that if we actually followed this, and chose not to stereotype people, one of the unfortunate things I have to do around here is to defend the black population for whatever reason in a city that's 85% black. That doesn't make any sense. But I end up doing it just because people, we don't mingle. And if we followed the golden rule in life, I think a lot of problems would be solved. Most problems would be solved with what we learned in kindergarten, but
and that's exactly why. That's exactly why we do the well for these type of conversations. Listen, y'all have been great. Y'all have been amazing. I am so honored. I really am. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I'm so honored that the both of you all agreed to come on this evening. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. Our comments have been going off. There are people who are really just having a lot of the conversation. I want to end on this one question. Well, two questions. JaVonni, real quick. So, no canceling. Is that what I hear? No canceling. more education?
Absolutely, 100%. We don't need to
Okay.
throw people in the trash.
And my last question for you both is this, and then we'll give you a moment to just share how people can follow you. But our last question is this. So there's a lot to digest, and there's a lot of work to be done. What is your advice to folks who are trying to figure in this crazy world of cancel culture, in this crazy world of church and acceptance, in this crazy world of sin and non-sin? What is your advice to folks about who are willing? What is your advice to the folks who are just willing to listen? What advice would you give to people to say, this is what it takes, right, for us to begin to move forward? What is the advice on how to move forward to just in a couple of seconds? What's your advice to folks on how we can begin to move forward in this crazy world?
I'll let you go
For
first.
me, basically, I just feel like, I always end a lot of my talks by saying I'm this small pebble that's been tossed out into the body of water. And the ripple effects are my story that I'm telling you who I am and what my future lies. That I really feel God has placed it on my heart to do, just like the Butterfly Project. Now it's your turn to hear what I'm telling you, absorb it, tell people, hey, I know a trans person who you saw tonight who is doing excellent things out there. And I'm sorry, I will say I'm doing excellent things out there. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. But I want you to take that information and then carry it and let it ripple effect further out there in that water. Um, in 2015, I was honored in the Platform magazine. It's an international magazine for up and coming aspiring females with a platform. That's what I'm trying to teach the other transgender people in our community, to build yourself a platform so when you tell people that you're transgender, you're going to get the same response that I got when I told Red Cross, CERT, which is Community Emergency Response Team, RSVP, which is Retired Seniors Volunteer Program, that I had something to tell them. And they gave me this strange look like, what are you going to tell me? I'm transgender. And every one of them said, I'm just glad you're not leaving the organization. That's what I want us to be able to be received and not judged because of the fact we're transgender. And that's the effect that I want to be able to let spread out. So yeah, learn from us, but most of all, give us the respect. And that's including at the church.
Nah,
Amen. I
that to
get you.
that to that.
I appreciate that, Miss Karen. JaVonni?
Yes. So, I feel that life is about learning. And so I personally like helping, disadvantaged communities. I've studied poverty for like the last 10 years. And so as it pertains to, say, things like housing projects, I study this. I try to, interview people who are, in affordable housing. I just had an interview with a trans rapper the other week. I was saying I was excited because it was the first one that I had. So, of course, I had like a whole list of questions about community issues. And
Yeah.
I think that the solution to us being so divided and, making these generalizations from afar is just to talk to each other. That's all. When I first got involved in politics, all I did, and this was in Ward 8, DC, I knew nothing about, whether it was social services or, all of the above. I was literally a part of the, take a bulldozer, knock everything down like people. And so it took a long time for me to learn. But all I did was go in the back of the room, sit down, shut up and listen. That was it
That
until I felt that I knew enough
that
to speak. And, then I was able to have my discourse from there. I mean, I'm the type that enjoys going into any neighborhood, going into different environments, learning what's going on there and to try to take the fight on and moving forward. But at first, it takes just not being afraid of other people. I've been, the only black person in the room politically plenty, whereby, as soon as they mention the word black or something, the whole room I'm feeling is looking out of the corner of their eye to see if I'm comfortable, you know. But I was there, and it's sort of long enough for folks to, loosen up. But yeah, just talk to people, and I can't overstate that. We don't talk, and the only talking that we do is the firing off and seeking to cancel people on the internet. That's why Dave Chappelle said Twitter is not a real place. This is not how normal conversation goes. I'm always encouraging people, even for those who have a problem with me. I will be at such and such, not to fight, but we can discuss this in person. I'm not arguing with you on the internet. And, the conversations always take a complete 180 when doing that, only because I don't have a problem, with saying it and speaking to people. And I wish that more of us did that.
So I've put in the chat for everybody. Karen, I put in your website. JaVonni, I just now put in the Pop Glitz website. But just so that people can hear it from your mouth, Karen, how can people stay in contact with you? If you'll just share that with us one more time.
You can contact me by going on my personal website, which is kkholmes.com. And the other way you can reach me is by email, by putting in kkholmes@kkholmes.com. And pretty much I will get back to you right away. If you want to put in the subject line, if you're sending me by email, so I know it's somebody who is watching this program, just put on the subject line "The Well," and then maybe dash in or whatever you want to ask, and we will answer. I pretty much am an open book. I will answer any question that you ask. I haven't turned down any question. I've heard all kinds of questions too, but we're open to it. And if I decided that might be too personal or whatever, I will say I will take a pass. Just respect that. That's all. But we're here to answer every. The only way you're going to learn about who we are is to ask. And that's what I try to tell a lot of trans people, is to be able to respond in a loving, caring way that you will understand and receive it in a loving way, questions that they may have, and give them the right answer. And, I tell people, I don't hate Caitlyn Jenner. Matter of fact, I take a springboard off of who she is, because people don't know her person, but you better way of getting in touch with me than you will with Caitlyn Jenner, and I will be able to answer your questions. So just keep that in mind.
I really appreciate that openness, man. I can't tell you how much I love the openness. JaVonni, how about yourself? How can people stay in contact with you?
Yes. So if you want to follow me on a daily basis, I write for apocalypse.com, and my personal website is JaVonniBrustow.com, and I can be found on pretty much all social medias by searching my name.
Awesome. Listen, again, did you have anything to...
Nah, I took JaVonni's advice today, which was shut up and listen. So that's why I didn't entertain. I didn't say at all. Yeah, I felt like one of these, like this type of conversation just in general was one of them. Everybody just shut up and listen this time. It's like, don't nobody need to try to, but what about this? And then shut up and listen for a while. You know what I'm saying? Let's take time to really understand what's going on, not just our community, but every single community, and how we're all going through something that we're trying to reach the same exact thing at the same day. You know what I'm saying? So thank you guys, just overall in general, for this conversation. I enjoyed every minute of it. I've learned a heck of a lot to even put in my ministry and stuff like that. Thank you all. And
happy to help.
Yeah, same here. Happy to help.
Pastor Mo, what you got? What you think? You always talk about it. What do you have to say? What has this done for you today?
Man, listen, I have so much respect for the both of you. I'm trying to make sure I put everybody's email and stuff in the chat. I have so much respect for both of you. Miss Karen, I can't thank you enough. You and your spirit and your energy just means the world to me. I need you to know that. I admire you, and I really just respect you and the work that you're doing. I'm grateful because that is exactly why we have this type of platform, for us to have more conversations and for people to learn. JaVonni, you already know, my brother. I've had a couple conversations with you. I just thank you for the moment that we met and talked and the interview you did with me. And I'm grateful that you were able to come on here in this platform and share your knowledge and the wealth of knowledge that you have. You are both amazing people. And I just respect you so much. So again, thank you both for coming on. Everybody who has been a part of this online, make sure we have to have you guys again at some point. We'll reach back out to you at some point. Everybody who has been a part of the Wellians, all the folks who have watched, make sure you like this. If you're watching from any place, make sure you share this. If you came and you're watching it 2 days from now or a week from now, make sure to share this. That's the only way, as Ms. Karen said, that people can learn. So share this on your Facebook pages. Send it, the link in a text message to somebody. But spread the love to folks. So what's Should have been learned. Hey, listen, if you want to follow us, make sure you follow us on all of our social media sites at Encounter the Well on Instagram and on Facebook, Encounter the Well. Go to our website, www.encounterthewell.com, and you can find out much more about us there. We do have good news. On Sunday, the 21st, we're back in person for the first time in a long time. We're going to do our first brunch, open mic brunch. So meet us there at Mr. Henry's. And you can go to our website to find the event, or you can go to the link that I'm putting in the chat. Again, that's on Sunday the 21st. Make sure you're there with us for our first open mic brunch, hosted by Butterfly Free, and our special feature is T'Challa itself. Also, last but not least, make sure that if you're willing to give and support this cause, you can text us to give at 84321. Any dollar amount. If you want to give $5, text it. If you want to give $100 like it is in the picture, if you want to give $500, 84321, and become a reoccurring giver. You can sign up to reoccur and you can give every month. We need your support. We need your love. Up until then, we appreciate you and we love you, and there's nothing to do about it. Next week, we're talking about the N-word. We're talking about power in words. We are talking about the N-word. Who can use it? When can you use it? Where can you use it? All that good stuff. And we're talking about some deep stuff. Make sure that we might get canceled for that one. Cancel! But we're talking about the N-word. So make sure the event is already up. Go ahead and check it out on our Facebook page. And we'll see you then. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Amplify Network. Thanks, JaVonni. Thanks, Karen. Love y'all.
Okay.